The crack of a Winchester rifle split the autumn air of Redemption Creek, Colorado, in 1876. But it wasn't the sound that froze Nora Evans' heart, it was the laughter that followed. The men who'd escorted her from the stagecoach to this remote trading post weren't lawmen as they'd claimed. They were opportunists who had spotted a woman traveling alone, a woman whose parents had recently died, leaving her with nothing but a small trunk of belongings and a letter from an uncle in San Francisco who might take her in. $500, announced the taller of the two men, a scraggly bearded fellow named Deke. He addressed a group of well-dressed gentlemen lounging on the trading post's wide porch. For this fine Eastern lady to serve as wife, maid, or whatever suits your fancy. 500. One of the gentlemen scoffed, puffing on a cigar that probably cost more than Nora had to her name. For that slip of a girl, I wouldn't pay 50. Nora's cheeks burned with humiliation as she stood in the dusty yard, her wrists bound with coarse rope. The trunk containing her few possessions sat at her feet, and her honey-brown hair, once neatly pinned, now fell in disheveled waves around her face. At 22, she'd known hardship, but never such degradation. Gentlemen, Deke raised his hands. This here's a joke. We ain't really selling her, unless someone's buying. His companions snickered, and the wealthy men on the porch joined in the cruel laughter. I'll give you $2. Another man called out to more raucous laughter. $3 and a bottle of whiskey, shouted another. Tears threatened to spill from Nora's blue eyes, but she refused to give them the satisfaction. She'd lost everything her parents to influenza, their modest home to debtors, but she wouldn't lose her dignity too. She kept her chin high even as the men continued their mockery. That's enough. The voice was quiet but carried such authority that the laughter immediately died. Nora turned toward the sound and saw a tall figure dismounting from a dapple gray horse. The man wore a well-worn duster over simple clothing, a weathered Stetson pulled low over his eyes. Unlike the pampered men on the porch, everything about him spoke of hard work and the open range. Travis Yates, one of the rich men, nodded in recognition, his tone suddenly respectful. What brings you to town? Thought you'd be up at the Double Circle. Travis ignored the question and walked straight toward Nora. His eyes, green as summer sage, assessed her situation quickly. When he looked at the two men who'd brought her here, his gaze hardened. Untie her, he said. Deke shifted uncomfortably. Now hold on, Cowboy. We're just having some fun, and besides, in one fluid motion, Travis drew his revolver. I said untie her. Deke quickly complied, fumbling with the knots. Once freed, Nora rubbed her wrists, fighting to maintain her composure. How much do you want for her? Travis asked, not holstering his weapon. $500, Deke repeated hopefully. Travis reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a money clip. He counted out several bills and handed them over. This is $300, more than fair. The men on the porch watched in silence, their earlier amusement replaced by something closer to respect or perhaps fear. Now get out of my sight, Travis told the two men, before I decide you're not worth the bullets. They didn't need a second invitation. Grabbing the money, they hurried toward their horses tethered at the hitching post. Travis finally holstered his weapon and turned to Nora. Madam, I apologize for what happened here. These men, he gestured toward the wealthy onlookers who were suddenly finding reasons to disperse, should have known better. Thank you for your assistance, sir, Nora said stiffly, although her heart was still pounding. But I am not for sale, not for $300, not for any amount. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I didn't buy you, Miss Evans, Nora Evans, Miss Evans. I paid them to leave you alone. There's a difference. Nora studied him, uncertain. In her experience, men rarely did anything without expecting something in return. What is it you want from me, then? Nothing. But you need a safe place to stay, and I can offer that. I own the Double Circle Ranch north of here. My sister runs the house, and we have plenty of room. You can stay until you sort out your next steps. Your sister. Nora repeated, a small measure of relief washing over her. Hannah. She's been wanting female company that doesn't moo or neigh. His attempt at humor barely registered through Nora's exhaustion and suspicion. "Why would you help me?" Travis looked away, his expression unreadable. "Because decent folks don't stand by when others need help," he glanced back at her. "My horse can carry us both to the ranch. It's about an hour's ride." Nora hesitated, weighing her limited options. The stagecoach had already departed. She had no money for a room, and even if she did, the town seemed full of unsavory characters. "Very well, Mr. Yates, I accept your offer temporarily." Travis nodded and moved to pick up her trunk. "This all you have?" "It's all I have left in the world," she admitted. Something flickered in his eyes, understanding, perhaps. "Well, Miss Evans, sometimes all we need is a fresh start." He secured the trunk to his saddle and offered his hand to help her mount. "And I reckon you're worth more than any amount of gold those fools could have offered." As Travis swung up behind her, careful to maintain a respectful distance, Nora found herself wondering what twist of fate had brought her to this moment, and where it might lead. The Double Circle Ranch sprawled across the rolling foothills that preceded the more dramatic peaks of the Rockies. Nora, who'd spent most of her life in a small Pennsylvania town, marveled at the vastness of the landscape as they approached. A large two-story house stood as the centerpiece of the property, surrounded by various outbuildings, corrals, and barns. As they rode into the yard, a woman emerged from the house, wiping her hands on an apron. Her auburn hair, the same shade as Travis's, was pulled back in a practical bun, and her face lit up with curiosity at the sight of Nora. "Hannah," Travis called out as he dismounted, then helped Nora down. "We have a guest." Hannah Yates approached with an open, friendly expression. "Well, it's about time you brought someone interesting home instead of just stray cattle." Travis explained the situation in brief terms, omitting the crueler details of how he'd found Nora. Hannah's expression darkened momentarily, but she quickly masked it with a welcoming smile. "You poor thing, traveling all that way alone. Come inside, let's get you settled. I've just put on a pot of stew that could feed an army." While Travis took care of his horse and Nora's trunk, Hannah led her into the house. The interior was surprisingly refined for a frontier ranch home's solid furniture, good carpets, and tasteful decorations spoke of prosperity but not ostentation. "My brother built most of this furniture himself," Hannah said, noticing Nora's appreciation. "He's got a gift with his hands that few would guess from looking at him." "The ranch seems quite successful," Nora observed. Hannah nodded. "Travis started with next to nothing 10 years ago. Just himself, me, and about 50 head of cattle. Now the Double Circle is one of the most respected spreads in Colorado territory." In the kitchen, Hannah poured Nora a cup of coffee and insisted she sit while preparations for dinner continued. "So you were heading to San Francisco?" she asked. "Yes, my uncle is there, at least I hope he still is. I haven't seen him since I was a child. And your parents, both gone now, influenza took them last winter." Hannah's face softened with genuine sympathy. "I'm sorry to hear that. Travis and I lost our parents young as well." "It's not an easy road." Travis entered then, carrying Nora's trunk. "I've put this in the blue room. Thought you'd be comfortable there." "Thank you," Nora said, still uncomfortable with his generosity. "Mr. Yates, I want to be clear, I intend to repay you for your help. I can work while I'm here. I'm not skilled with ranch duties, but I can cook, clean, so—" "You're our guest, not a servant," Hannah interjected. "Still, I insist on earning my keep." Travis studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Fair enough, but rest today. Tomorrow's soon enough to worry about work." That evening, after a hearty meal and more comfortable conversation than Nora had expected, she retired to the blue room. It was simple but lovely, with a large window overlooking the distant mountains. She unpacked a few necessities from her trunk, including a small framed photograph of her parents and a well-worn copy of Tennyson's poems. Exhaustion soon overcame her, and she fell into the first peaceful sleep she'd had in weeks. The following days established a rhythm. True to her word, Nora helped Hannah with household duties, cooking, cleaning, and mending. She learned that while the Yates siblings employed several ranch hands, They kept no domestic help except for a local woman who came once a week for laundry. Travis doesn't like strangers in the house, Hannah explained one morning as they kneaded bread dough together. It took him years to feel comfortable having the hands eat at our table during roundup. He seems reserved, Nora said carefully. Hannah laughed. That's putting it kindly. My brother's got walls higher than those mountains, but he's a good man, the best I know. Nora had seen little of Travis those first few days. He left early each morning to work with his men and returned late, often after she had retired. When their paths did cross, he was unfailingly polite but maintained a careful distance. On her fourth day at the double circle, Nora was hanging laundry when Travis approached, leading a gentle-looking chestnut mare. "Miss Evans," he called, "I thought you might like to see more of the ranch." Nora hesitated. "I've never actually ridden a horse before." A hint of surprise crossed his face. "Never. We had a carriage horse when I was young, but ladies in Millfield didn't ride astride. Buttercup here is as gentle as they come. I can teach you if you're willing." Something in his expression, a rare openness, made it impossible to refuse. "Very well, Mr. Yates. I'll try." The lesson began with basic mounting and seat position, with Travis keeping a respectful distance while providing clear instructions. Nora found herself a quick study, and soon they were walking the horses around the nearest pasture. "You have a natural seat," Travis observed. "Most first-timers grip with their knees like they're holding on for dear life." "I've always adapted quickly to new situations," Nora replied. "A necessary skill these past months," Travis nodded thoughtfully. "Hannah mentioned your parents passed last winter. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." Nora kept her eyes on the horizon. "They were good people. My father was a bookkeeper for a textile mill. He always stressed the importance of education and sent me to school longer than most girls." "That explains your way with words. Hannah says you've been reading to her from that book of poems." Nora smiled, surprised he knew about that. "Tennyson." "It was a gift from my father on my 16th birthday." They rode in companionable silence for a while, the only sounds the creak of leather and the soft snorting of the horses. Finally, Travis guided them toward a rise overlooking a broad valley. "This is my favorite view on the property," he said as they stopped. "You can see almost the entire double circle from here." Nora gazed out at the sweeping landscape, herds of cattle dotting the valley floor, cowboys tiny in the distance as they went about their work. The beauty of it caught in her throat. "It's magnificent," she said softly. "You've built something remarkable here. It wasn't always this way." Travis removed his hat, running a hand through his son's streaked hair. "When Hannah and I arrived in Colorado, I had just turned 20. Our parents had been gone 3 years by then, and we'd been working other people's land in Kansas. I saved every penny until I could buy 50 head and stake a claim." "That must have taken tremendous courage, or foolishness," he replied with a wry smile. "That first winter nearly broke us. Lost 15 head to wolves and the cold. Hannah came down with pneumonia so bad I thought I'd lose her too, but you persevered. Didn't have much choice, no going back, only forward." He replaced his hat. "I suspect you understand something about that." Their eyes met, and Nora felt a current of recognition pass between them, two people who understood what it meant to lose everything and continue anyway. The moment was broken by a shout from below. One of the ranch hands was galloping toward them, waving urgently. "Boss." He called as he approached. Rustlers hit the north pasture. They got away with at least 30 head. Travis's expression hardened instantly. "Get back to the house," he told Nora. "Tell Hannah what's happened. I'll be back when I can." Before she could respond, he was already galloping down the slope, the ranch hand close behind. Nora returned to the house and delivered the message to Hannah, who received the news with resigned concern. "It happens every few years," Hannah explained as she began packing provisions. "Usually when cattle prices are high, Travis will gather the men and try to recover the herd." "Isn't that dangerous?" Nora asked, helping to wrap bread and cheese. Rustling is a hanging offense. Men who steal cattle aren't likely to surrender peacefully. Hannah paused in her work. My brother can handle himself, but I always worry until he's home safe. Travis and his men returned 3 days later, successful in their recovery of the stolen cattle but bearing the marks of a violent confrontation. Travis himself sported a deep gash on his forearm that Hannah insisted on treating immediately. It's nothing, he protested, as Nora helped Hannah prepare bandages and hot water in the kitchen. It'll be blood poisoning if you don't let me clean it properly, Hannah countered, pushing him into a chair. Nora watched as Hannah cleaned the wound with practiced efficiency. Travis winced occasionally but made no sound of complaint. When Hannah stepped away to fetch more bandages, Nora found herself taking over, gently applying the salve Hannah had prepared. You have a careful touch, Miss Evans, Travis said quietly. I nursed both my parents through their final illness, she replied, focusing on wrapping the bandage. Though I wish I'd been more successful in their case. Some battles can't be won, no matter how hard we fight. His voice held the weight of experience. Their eyes met again, and this time the connection lingered. Nora became acutely aware of his proximity, of the warmth of his skin beneath her fingertips. She finished securing the bandage and stepped back, her heart beating faster than the simple task warranted. Thank you, he said, the words carrying more meaning than the situation seemed to require. That night, as Nora prepared for bed, she found herself thinking about Travis Yates more than was proper for a woman in her position. He'd saved her from a humiliating fate, offered shelter with no expectations, and treated her with unfailing respect. And yet, there was something more developing, a current of understanding that transcended their brief acquaintance. The following week brought a change to the routine at Double Circle. A telegram arrived from San Francisco. Nora's uncle had responded to the letter she'd sent upon arriving at the ranch. His message was brief but devastating. He was preparing to depart for Australia on business and could not accommodate her. He enclosed $20 and his regrets. Nora read the telegram in the privacy of her room, tears finally breaking through the composure she'd maintained through all her recent trials. She didn't hear the knock at her door until it came a second time, louder. Nora, are you all right? It was Travis. The first time he'd used her given name, she hastily wiped her eyes and opened the door. I'm fine, thank you. He studied her face, clearly unconvinced. Hannah said a telegram came for you. Wordlessly, Nora handed him the paper. He read it quickly, his expression darkening. I'm sorry, he said, returning it to her. What will you do now? I don't know. The admission cost her pride, but there was no point in pretense. Perhaps I can find work in town. With these funds I could pay for lodging until I secure a position. Travis frowned. Redemption Creek isn't the safest place for a woman alone. I don't have many alternatives, Mr. Yates. Travis, he corrected gently. And you do have an alternative. Stay here. Nora shook her head. I've imposed on your hospitality long enough. It's no imposition. Hannah adores you, and the ranch could use someone with your skills. I've been meaning to set up proper books for the business, and you said your father was a bookkeeper. He taught me his methods, yes, Nora acknowledged. But I couldn't. I'll pay you a fair wage, Travis continued. You'd have your independence and a safe place to live, at least until you decide what you truly want. The offer was tempting more than tempting. In the weeks since arriving at Double Circle, Nora had found a peace she hadn't expected. The work was satisfying. Hannah had become a dear friend, and Travis was becoming something she dared not name. I'll consider it, she finally said. Travis nodded, seemingly satisfied with that much. Good, now come down for supper before Hannah sends a search party. As autumn progressed toward winter, Nora's position at the Double Circle evolved from guest to valued member of the household. She took over the ranch's bookkeeping, organizing years of haphazard records into a proper accounting system. She also continued to help Hannah with household management, and even began riding out occasionally to deliver meals to the men working distant parts of the property. Her relationship with Travis developed more slowly. He remained reserved, but the walls Hannah had mentioned gradually lowered. They often discussed books in the evenings. Travis was surprisingly well-read for a man who'd had little formal education, and he began teaching Nora more about ranch operations during their increasingly frequent rides together. One crisp November afternoon, as they returned from checking on a remote line cabin, Travis surprised her by detouring toward a stand of aspen trees near a small creek. "There's something I want to show you," he explained, dismounting and helping Nora down. He led her to a clearing where the golden aspen leaves created a canopy overhead. In the center stood a half-built structure, the beginnings of a small cabin. "What is this?" Nora asked, running her hand along the carefully joined logs, "A project I started last spring." Travis seemed uncharacteristically nervous. I've been considering building a home of my own. The main house will always belong to both Hannah and me, but she deserves her own space to perhaps start a family someday." "It's beautiful work," Nora said, admiring the craftsmanship. "Your sister wasn't exaggerating about your skill with your hands." Travis cleared his throat. "Actually, I wanted your opinion on the design, the location, everything." Nora looked at him curiously. "My opinion? Why would that matter?" He met her gaze directly, his green eyes intense. "Because I've been hoping. That is, I've come to care for you, Nora, more than I should, perhaps, given the circumstances of our meeting." Her heart began to race, but she kept her voice steady. "What exactly are you saying, Travis?" "I'm saying that when I found you that day in Redemption Creek, I never expected you would become so important to me. I know it hasn't been long and you may not feel the same, but I do," Nora interrupted softly. "Feel the same." The admission hung in the air between them, fragile and momentous. "You do?" he asked, as if he couldn't quite believe it. "Yes, though I've been trying very hard not to." A smile, the first full, unguarded smile she'd seen from him, transformed his face. "Why is that?" "Because I came here with nothing. Because you saved me, and gratitude isn't the same as—" She hesitated, unable to say the word that hovered on her lips. "Love," he supplied quietly. "Yes." Travis took a step closer. "Nora, when I said you were worth more than gold that day, I meant it. But I had no idea how true those words would prove to be. You've brought something to the double circle to me that was missing. A warmth, a purpose beyond just building and acquiring. You've given me a home when I had none," she replied. "Security when I was adrift. Is that all I've given you?" He asked, his voice low. Nora took a deep breath and decided on honesty. "No, you've given me hope, a reason to look forward rather than back, and feelings I never expected to have again." Travis reached out slowly, giving her time to withdraw if she chose, and took her hand in his. "I'm not a man of fancy words, Nora, but I know what I want, and it's a future with you if you'll have me." Instead of answering immediately, Nora rose on her toes and pressed her lips gently to his. The kiss was brief, but conveyed what words could not: trust, affection, and the promise of deeper feelings. When she pulled back, Travis looked stunned but delighted. "I take it that's a yes," Nora laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. "It's a yes to exploring what's between us." "The future? We'll build that together day by day." He nodded, understanding her need for caution even as his eyes shone with happiness. "Together then, starting now." The following weeks brought a deepening of their relationship and a shifting of dynamics at the double circle. Hannah, far from being surprised by the development, admitted she'd been hoping for it since Nora's first week at the ranch. "My brother's been alone too long," she confided to Nora one evening as they prepared for the upcoming Thanksgiving feast. "He's devoted his life to building this ranch and taking care of me. It's time he found happiness for himself." "I worry that we're rushing," Nora admitted. "We've known each other such a short time," Hannah laughed. "Out here, life moves at its own pace. Sometimes slow as molasses, sometimes quick as lightning. The important thing isn't time, it's knowing your own heart." Thanksgiving brought most of the ranch hands to the main house for a lavish meal. Sitting at the head of the table with Nora at his right and Hannah at his left, Travis seemed more relaxed and content than anyone could remember seeing him. When he stood to carve the turkey, he cleared his throat for attention. "Before we eat, I want to say something." His eyes found Nora's. "This year, I have more to be thankful for than usual. The ranch is prospering, the cattle are healthy, and we've been blessed with good men who work hard." He nodded to the assembled hands. "But most of all, I'm grateful for an unexpected addition to our family." A murmur of agreement ran around the table, with several hands raising glasses in Nora's direction. "Miss Evans has brought organization to our chaos," Travis continued with a smile, "poetry to our practical lives, and—" He paused, his expression softening, joy to at least one lonely heart. The declaration, public yet personal, brought color to Nora's cheeks and warmth to her soul. As the meal progressed, she found herself observing the gathering with new eyes, not as an outsider or temporary visitor, but as someone who belonged. Later that evening, after the men had returned to the bunkhouse and Hannah had retired, Travis and Nora sat before the fireplace in comfortable silence. Snow had begun to fall outside, the first of the season, blanketing the ranch in pristine white. "I've been thinking," Travis said finally, taking her hand, "about what you said, building our future day by day. Yes, I'd like to formalize that intention if you're willing." From his pocket he withdrew a small velvet pouch. "This was my mother's. Hannah's been keeping it safe all these years." Inside the pouch was a simple gold band set with a single pearl. "It's beautiful," Nora whispered. "It's yours if you want it, and me along with it." Travis's voice was steady, but Nora could see the vulnerability in his eyes. "I know proper courtship usually takes longer, but—" "Yes," Nora interrupted, her heart too full for lengthy deliberation. "Yes, I'll marry you, Travis." The kiss they shared then was deeper than their first, a promise sealed with passion and tenderness. When they finally parted, Travis rested his forehead against hers. "When I found you that day, those men were selling you as a joke to the rich," he said softly. "I knew then you were worth more than gold, but I never imagined how much you'd come to mean to me." "Sometimes the most precious things come from the most unlikely beginnings," Nora replied, thinking of how far she'd come from that humiliating moment in Redemption Creek. They were married on Christmas Day in the main house, with Hannah, the ranch hands, and a few neighbors as witnesses. The local minister performed the ceremony before a fire blazing in the hearth, with evergreen boughs and red berries decorating the mantels and banisters. Nora wore a dress of deep blue velvet that Hannah had helped her make, with her mother's lace collar as her something old. Travis, usually seen in practical work clothes, surprised everyone by appearing in a proper suit ordered from Denver. "You look so handsome," Nora whispered when she first saw him. "And you're the most beautiful bride Colorado Territory has ever seen," he replied, his eyes never leaving hers. The vows they exchanged were traditional, but spoken with such conviction that many eyes in the room grew damp. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the cheer that went up threatened to shake snow from the eaves. The celebration continued well into the evening, with music provided by two ranch hands who played fiddle and harmonica. Travis and Nora danced together for the first time, moving with a natural harmony that belied their short acquaintance. "Mrs. Yates," Travis murmured as they swayed to a slow melody. "How does it sound?" "Like home," Nora replied, resting her head against his shoulder. "Like belonging." Later, after the guests had departed and Hannah had tactfully retired early to stay with a neighbor, Travis led Nora to the master bedroom, now their bedroom. A fire had been lit, casting a warm glow over the simple but handsome furniture Travis had crafted himself. "I never imagined this room would feel so different," he said, watching as Nora unpinned her hair, letting it fall in waves down her back. "So complete." Their first night as husband and wife was a discovery of tenderness and passion, of whispered words and gentle touches that grew bolder as their confidence in each other deepened. For Nora, who had known only loss and uncertainty for so long, the safety of Travis's embrace was a revelation. "I love you," she told him in the quiet darkness afterward, the words coming easily now that all barriers between them had fallen. "I think I began to love you that very first day when you stood up for a stranger against all those men." Travis pulled her closer, his lips brushing her temple. "And I've loved you since I saw you standing there, head held high despite everything. My brave Nora." Spring came early to the double circle that year. The cabin by the aspen grove was completed with the help of the ranch hands, though Travis and Nora decided to remain in the main house with Hannah for the time being. The ranch prospered under their combined management, Travis handling the cattle and land, Nora maintaining the books and correspondence, and Hannah overseeing the household with her usual efficiency. On a warm April evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the distant mountains in shades of pink and gold, Nora shared news that brought tears of joy to Travis's eyes. "A baby," he repeated, his hand gently covering her still flat stomach. "You're certain?" "The doctor in town confirmed it yesterday when Hannah and I went for supplies. We should expect our child around Thanksgiving." Travis gathered her into a gentle embrace. "A year ago, I had a ranch and a sister and thought it was enough. Now I have a wife, a child on the way." His voice grew husky with emotion. "More blessings than I deserve." "Exactly what you deserve," Nora corrected, kissing him softly. "A family to match the home you've built." As twilight deepened into night, they remained on the porch, planning and dreaming. The child would need a proper nursery. Perhaps by next year they'd expand the main house rather than move to the cabin. The future stretched before them, bright with possibility. "You know," Travis said as they finally rose to go inside, "those men in town did us a favor in their own terrible way." Nora looked at him questioningly. "They thought they were selling you as a joke to the rich," he explained, "but I got the greatest treasure of all." He placed his hand over her heart. "This, your trust, your love, worth more than all the gold in Colorado." Nora smiled, covering his hand with her own. "Then we're even. Because I found something I thought was lost forever, a place to belong, and someone to belong to." Together they walked into the house, into the warmth and light of the home they'd created from the unlikeliest of beginnings, a cruel joke transformed by courage and kindness into the richest of lives.